Why are you playing football again? Didn't you say that you are going to eat at my mother's place last week? There was a female voice on the phone. Chi Ce patted his forehead, and quickly hid to the side of the court with his mobile phone, for fear of being heard by his teammates. Heart language, I'm sorry, I forgot. Then I'll come over now. Who wants you to come over in sweat? Playing football, kicking football, kicking football. You only know how to play football all the time, let's get married to football. I don't want to think of a way to earn more money when I'm 30, just use it for a lifetime. The other party scolded angrily and hung up the phone. Chi Ce hurriedly called back, and was directly hung up twice, and then hit the third time. This time it was finally blocked. Hey! With a heavy sigh, Chi Ce looked at the rejected message on the phone and wondered how to please her. It's not a big deal to say that it's a blind date. The other party is the daughter of his father's former colleague. She had known each other more than 10 years ago and had never been married. So it was a matter of course that he was matched by the father, and just tried this. Tried. It's just that the other party has not been married, and I heard that he met a scumbag. Chi Ce has heard about this, but if he didn't ask about it, it was a knot in his heart. There was a sudden burst of cheers on the court. He looked up and saw that his gate was broken again by his opponent. It seems that the ball was also lost. Today is really a Mercury retrograde. Chi Ce sighed again and took a few sips of the mineral water at hand. Alleviate the depression in the heart. What's the matter with you today? When I got home, I couldn't help but swear. My mother Zhang Huafang waited until her son came home, and the criticism meeting began. At this time, my father would usually look at the cigarette with cold eyes, and his eyes were full of hatred for iron and steel. It seems that she has brought the lawsuit to the father's side again. Chi Ce smiled bitterly and shook his head, but also couldn't blame others. He forgot that it was indeed his fault. In the middle of the night, the chattering mother and the silent father were already asleep. Chi Ce returned to his small room and tapped the keyboard twice. The sleeping screen was awakened, emitting a slight blue light, illuminating Chi Ce's half-body. It seems that the whole world is very dark and quiet, except for the small amount of screen light with the lowest brightness in front of him, the faint noise of the computer cooling fan, and the quartz clock overhead. Chi Ce glanced at it, and he was about to point to the number 1. Is 29 years old. At this time, there will always be some inexplicable size. Looking at the football manager's game on the screen, Chi Ce felt bitter. The football dreams of his youth had long been shattered, and he wanted to reproduce it in the game. As the game gets more and more updated, it becomes boring. When playing Football Manager before, Chi Ce had a habit of adding a database to establish himself, putting all his real information into the game, and then making up a fictional past experience into the game, playing with a sense of accomplishment. But the game is ultimately a game, and as he gets older and older, the real data is no longer meaningful. Chi Ce himself doesn't want to use the veteran who is on the verge of 30 years old at the beginning of the game. Therefore, there is still a Football Manager 2008 in the Kai's computer. This is probably the best generation of works for him. Well, in terms of age, it is indeed the best. That year, he was 16. Although it was very late, Chi Ce still opened the game database in a ghostly way. After repeated operations for countless times, Chi Ce was already familiar with the road. Position, forward. After a brief thought, Chi Ce decided to return to his old line of business. In terms of attributes, since I have chosen this way, I simply choose the data that best suits my abilities. This is also a very familiar operation. When Chi Ce was young, it was not that he had never struggled for his dreams. For this reason, his father Chi Jianchuo, an old acquaintance, introduced him to Chongming Island, which is an alternative Pure Land of Chinese football. The football base built by the former head coach of the Chinese national team Su Gangbao, who is more than 60 years old, has produced countless talents and is struggling for all aspects of Chinese football. Qi Ce is one of them. Now Qi Ce works as a youth coach in a football training base. In fact, he is also bringing children to the bottom. The salary is not high, but he likes this job. To this day, the identity of a player at the Tongbao football base is still his golden signature. Everything is set up. Qi Ce clicked to save, but an option he had never seen before popped up. Ace, you are still playing in such a cold day, you are too hard. The tall, dark-skinned boy in front of him is called Yang Jiafei, a friend of Qi Ce's school days, 2 years older than Qi Ce, 2 years older than Qi Ce. People still have occasional contact until they cross. It's not the same for you. You still come to play football on New Year's Day. Qi Ce smiled. It's not that he was too hard, but got this system. Anyway, you have to try it first. Of course, the task is the same thing, but the most important purpose is to try my own body. 92's current ability value is enough to be a major player in the current Super League team, but after all, the data is only a number, and you can only know how many jins and 2 are really kicked. Fortunately, out of resistance to his parents' decision during this period in his previous life, Qi Ce found a lot of football-related QQ groups and made many friends, so he didn't stop playing when he wanted to play. Yang Jiafei was also during this time acquainted. Today's opponent has a professional player. I heard that it was a team member from last year's Union City. They are very good. Yang Jiafei's careless words caught Qi Ce's attention. Professional players? Come here to play wild ball. It's the off-season now, and isn't Lian Cheng going to help Shenhu emerge? There are a lot of people coming down from the echelon, and many people don't have a position to play, so they come to play in the amateur field. The match the two are discussing is actually a kickoff event organized by the public stadium near their home. They are usually played in a team of fans. Yang Jiafei is also one of them. Qi Ce, who has left professional football in his previous life, also often play in this team. But now he is just a foreign aide, because the football base is closed training, there are not many opportunities to come out. On the court, the last set of time was almost up. People wearing colorful jerseys gathered in 2s and 3s to drink water and change their jerseys. At this time, there was a small commotion on the sidelines. Qi Ce and Yang Jiafei turned their eyes. A man appeared on the side of the court, surrounded by several people talking and laughing. Oh! It's actually Jun Bian. Yang Jiafei smiled and said, I heard that he is still in a lawsuit with the team, and there is a salary issue. The name Qi Ce naturally knows a little bit. He was the main guard of the Shenhua team in the past. I haven't heard of it much since 2007. I didn't expect to meet him here on the first day of the journey back. Professional players. Qi Ce was very excited. After leaving Tongbao base in his previous life, he went to West Middle School. He didn't encounter professional players anymore. The occasional few times can't be used as a reference. After all, his strength and professional players are not at the same level. But it's different now. There is not much nonsense. People who know each other on the field will get together and chat, and those who are unfamiliar will quietly arrange their equipment. Qi Ce and these teammates are not familiar, so Yang Jiafei will occasionally come over to say a few words, most of the time. One person sorts out the jersey on the side. The stadium is not big, it is mainly used to play the 7-a-side stadium, but this one is a bit larger than the 7-a-side stadium. Most of the 8-a-side stadiums are chosen here. As soon as the game opened, Bian Jun appeared in the forward position. Qi Ce played the left forward. Since he was unfamiliar with his teammates, and most of the time the opponent led the offense, Qi Ce could hardly get any ball. As long as a professional player, he walks sideways on the field. In addition, Bian Jun mentioned a forward in his early years. He has quite good physical fitness. He has scored 4 goals in less than 20 minutes after the opening. Hard toes, steady dribbling, solid foundation, almost no mistakes on the field. Byun-jun was replaced by his teammates to rest after 20 minutes of playing. Unilateral ravages are meaningless. After Byun-jun left the field, this team's offense gradually improved. He may not be familiar with his teammates. Chi still has few chances to get the ball, but as long as there is a chance, Chi can create danger. The teammates gradually discovered that Chi's offense is playing very smoothly, led by Yang Jifei. The teammates finally began to be willing to pass the ball to Chi. Very comfortable. The ball is under the feet. Chi obviously has a completely different feeling from before. It should be said that it is a sense of peace of mind. It's hard to describe this feeling in words. It's like playing a game and just having trouble with the old bird. After receiving Yang Jifei's pass, Chi stopped a few centimeters away from his body and judged it instantly in his mind. There are several different ideas. Know what to do, know what kind of result your passing or dribbling will cause. Although this kind of amateur field reference value is not great, but it does not hinder what Chi feels now. Facing the defensive player who was swiftly approaching him, Chi lightly swiped the ball and the ball just rolled into the space where 2 or 3 defensive players could not catch up. Chi immediately rushed out. The speed was so fast that he was shocked. Once running, it is very comfortable. A sense of speed and strength goes hand in hand from the soles of the feet to the whole body. Is this how professional players feel on the field? Let me gallop. After dialing the ball, Chi leaped lightly over a defender and almost instantly caught up with the ball. The defensive team was taken aback. They ran over slowly to double team with a teammate. They thought they could always grab this small and weak-looking boy. He didn't expect his speed to be very fast. The 8-a-side court is not big, and he was close to the goal in an instant. Chi quickly glanced at the goalkeeper's position and shot. The ball hits the net. Grass, that guy is so fast. No reaction at all. The defensive team looked at Chi in astonishment. He was indeed a little lax just now. Before he could react, Chi broke through and cursed. In fact, he didn't care much either. There were too many fast boys on the court. He felt that it was just that he was a little slack just because of the big lead and didn't take a serious look at Chi. Sitting down the court, Byun-jun narrowed his eyes and looked at the boy who had just scored a goal. As a professional, his vision was naturally better than ordinary people. This kid definitely has practiced. Byun-jun thought secretly, but he didn't pay too much attention to it. Maybe it was a child of a certain team's youth team. The speed was indeed very fast in the 2 games just now, but I can't see anything else. There is no reference value in the amateur field. Pay more attention to that kid, there are 2 times. Byun-jun told his friend, squinting his eyes and continuing to stare at the court. Under Byun-jun's advice, Chi suddenly felt that his pressure had increased. There were not many chances of throwing his feet after the random lap just now. The opponent basically carried out the defense by 1 person, and the opponent was delayed by 1 person. The way to stare at him, the 7-a-side court was originally small and couldn't run away. But it does not hinder Chi's performance. Indeed, most of the technical attributes are single digits, which looks really shabby, but that is only relative to professional players. These amateur wild players, it is difficult to say whether some technical attributes have reached the basic digits. There is a gap between professional and amateur, which is insurmountable in a short time. The reason why a profession is to do some things day after day for 5 years, 10 years, or even longer. Small players have practiced more since they were 5 or 6 years old. It is not ordinary people who think about it on a whim. A height that can be reached by just playing around. The situation on the court changed. Chi led his teammates to launch a wave of offensive. The defenders who had just threatened that he hadn't reacted for a while felt miserable at this time. This guy is not at the same level as himself. Fast speed www.mtlnovel.com. The technology is also quite good. It is almost impossible to intercept the ball when facing him on on defense. Once he makes a shot, he will be passed. But the result is the same. With a light click on Chi Ce, he completely loses his center of gravity and is directly passed by. He felt that his face was a little unsustainable. The next time he encountered a frontal defensive opportunity, he shot directly. Unsurprisingly, Chi Ce made another smash and opened half of his position. He didn't close his foot and kicked it straight. Chi Ce dodged subconsciously, but before that, he took the ball out again. The amateur players could not understand these two actions at all. Why was it so fast? This time, he wandered near the bottom line. Bypassing the defensive team, full of horsepower, turned out to save the ball who was about to go out of bounds. Another smash, facing the attacking goalkeeper, an easy lob shot, and then scored. The defender who shoveled out looked at Chi Ce dumbfounded. What kind of monster is this? He was a little anxious about kicking just now, thinking that he must stop Chi Ce, and added some strength under his feet to give this kid a look. It turned out to be hidden by him. After scoring, Chi Ce didn't look back. It seemed as simple as eating and drinking. He didn't care about the player's flying kick just now. In fact, professional players pay great attention to protecting themselves, even on the field. If you do not deliberately injure people with great malice, it is very difficult to injure professional players on the field. The profession of a professional player is not only reflected in the football skills. Is just a small try to reach out. Chi Ce's team quickly pulled the gap of 4 goals to 1 goal. Bianjun stood up, this time even he had to pay attention to this child. Let me go, I'll go against him. The replaced player was played by Chi Ce just now. Obviously, he also understood that Chi Ce and their level are not at the same level. Brother Jun, this kid has to rely on you. Just now, Chi Ce also heard what Bianjun said. Chi Ce was happy in his heart. These few moments just now represent nothing. Only by confronting real professional players can I see how good he is. In front of Chi Ce, who is in his early 1.7 meter, Bianjun, who is 184 meters tall, is undoubtedly a big man. As soon as he played, Chi Ce clearly felt that the atmosphere of the stadium was different. This is a kind of coercion. Bianjun is very serious. The more he looks at Chi Ce off the court just now, the more surprised he is. This boy who is only half his age plays quite well. In the United City team last year, this boy might also be able to fight for a position. You have to know that. But the Super League team. So when he came up, he deliberately changed his position and hit the defender. That's right, he is here to confront Chi Ce, and he wants to defend Chi Ce himself. Chi Ce felt a burst of invisible pressure following him not far away. Looking up, Bianjun had been waiting for him in a very delicate position. As long as he took the ball, the position Bianjun was in would make him uncomfortable. It is difficult to break through forcefully. The first matchup, the first time he took the ball, Chi Ce tried to use his foot technique to sway Bianjun, but failed. Bianjun, like the defensive player just now, didn't play, but he didn't really play. He was waiting. Chi Ce's technique is still a bit worse than that of professional players. When facing amateur defenders, he even made a small mistake. The amateur players did not dare to force the grab. Chi Ce had enough time to get rid of it. But facing Bianjun, this trick didn't work. Chi Ce had just made a small mistake when he touched the ball with his right foot. Bianjun suddenly moved and stretched his foot to accurately jam Chi Ce's position and cut the ball off beautifully. Chi Ce reacted very quickly, and he countered in the first time. As a result, Bianjun used his body to resist, stepping the ball under his feet and flexibly bypassing Chi Ce's interception. Brother Jun. Pretty. The defensive team just now finally saw Chi Ce deflated and jumped up excitedly and clapped his hands. Jun Bian made a long pass to the front court, then turned his head to look at Chi Ce, and Chi Ce immediately retreated after the counter-robbing failed without hesitation. Professional players, it really is not covered. Chi Ce secretly admired in his heart, don't look simple just now, but actually it is much more difficult to do. What's more, Chi Ce is actually already driven by a series of previous performances. He is confident that even a professional player is not a problem, but he obviously thinks too much. As long as there is a slight error, professional players can also keenly capture opportunities. Because they face such errors all the time in training, and how many such errors can be caught is the difference between ordinary players and top players. Bian Jun is certainly not among the top ones, but it is enough to educate recruits like Chi Ce. Faced with players of this level, he didn't even think about playing tricks. Chi Ce decided to change his playing style. While the ball flew out of the guardrail, Chi Ce greeted Yang Jiafei from the sidelines to pick up the ball. All your will be passed behind me, just give them directly, don't think too much. Yang Jiafei gasped and nodded. Chi Ce was the strongest foreign aide he could find. After all, he had practiced with Bao Base. He also believed in Chi Ce's ability. Especially when he saw Chi Ce's performance just now, Yang Jiafei felt that this fellow himself seems to have improved a lot. The game is starting, this time Chi Ce is smarter, he no longer clings to the wing, but keeps running, pulling, and running without the ball in the entire front court. Chi Ce's running position is very clever, allowing him to defend him. Jun Bian was very uncomfortable. At this time, a strange phenomenon appeared on the court. Chi Ce's running position was too ghostly, even his teammates were difficult to predict. The effect of several passes was not ideal, and Bian Jun, who was staring at him, also ran along. For a while, these two people seemed to be floating outside the game and let the remaining amateur players play by themselves. But Chi Ce, who has an attacker, played more purposefully. The opponent's trump card was defending in the backcourt, and his side was not under pressure, and he gradually mastered the situation on the court. The pass goal is also clearer. As long as Chi Ce runs on a route that they can follow, the ball will be passed to Chi Ce in all likelihood, although not many times. After all, amateur players' skills are probably that's all. Chi Ce, who was waiting for an opportunity in the back, finally found a perfect opportunity. He quickly moved forward, and a figure flashed across Yang Jiafei's eyes. Don't be afraid of making mistakes, the pass is right. Yang Jiafei remembered what Chi Ce had said, and when he gritted his teeth, he kicked hard in front of the figure without even thinking about it. Nice shot! Chi Ce screamed in his heart and threw off his legs to try to bypass Bian Jun to chase him. Unexpectedly, Bian Jun is experienced. Amateur players like Yang Jiafei have no concealment to pass the ball. Seeing him raise his hand, Bian Jun knew he was going to do it. What? A stride just got stuck in front of Chi Ce. The moment he was about to collide, Chi Ce changed direction, and he almost crawled past Bian Jun's arm. Bian Jun reacted and pressed his force. Chi Ce staggered 2 steps, but soon overtook him. Got the ball. Chi Ce's speed is really fast, especially the explosive power. When ordinary people get hit like this, they will definitely be chased by Bian Jun when they find their balance. Don't look at Bian Jun's tall stature. He used to be a forward who was not slow. He had height and speed. This was his biggest reliance when playing a forward. Now he has an advantage in playing a defender. It's just that Bian Jun knows that his age is advanced, and his absolute speed and explosiveness are not as good as Chi Ce, but the pass is not good. Even if Chi Ce catches up, the angle to the goal is not good, so he follows closely behind him. Once Chi Ce stops the ball and wants to turn around, Bian Jun has the confidence to break off. After all, the physical fitness is here. With a light touch, Chi Ce can lose his center of gravity again with his strong body and unable to control the ball. Yes, in his opinion, Chi Ce's skills are really good, but they are still worse than professional players. Even if he hasn't played forwards for many years, he is almost half a cat. He doesn't believe that Chi Ce can still play while stopping the ball. He just needs to follow and get stuck. Insufficient skills. Chi Ce certainly knew his biggest problem. In a flash, the two had already rushed to the ball's landing spot. Chi Ce hardly thought about it. In the case of a small angle, he kept hitting the goal vigorously. Bian-jun observed the last few steps of Chi Ce approaching the ball and adjusted his hand gesture, and immediately realized that Chi Ce was about to shoot. He immediately gave up the idea of raising his foot to block the ball, and instead placed his hands behind him on the basis of non-fouling. He gave Chi Ce directly on his body. It was an off-ball confrontation just now, just to interfere with Chi Ce's speed. With the ball on this time, this interference must be fatal, Bian-jun believes. With such a tall professional guard coming next to him, Chi Ce instantly lost his balance, but his outstanding explosiveness allowed him to finally defeat Bian-jun. In the chase just now, Chi Ce was slightly ahead of him by just 1 centimeter. But enough. Before being disturbed, Chi Ce's shot has been completed. 12 shot data, facing an amateur goalkeeper on the field, even if the angle is not very good, but it is enough. The goalkeeper bends down symbolically, and the ball gallops past him, hanging straight to the bottom of the net. The defensive player who was ravaged by Chi Ce just now couldn't laugh. He never expected that Bian-jun, a famous Chinese super player, would let this little boy score a goal under his nose. It was not just him who was surprised. Everyone on the field knew that Bian-jun was here to play today. Many people came to see him to play, but they didn't expect to see this scene. After shooting, Chi Ce fell to the ground. www.mtlnovel.com. Bian-jun stepped forward and pulled him up. Good shot. This is a compliment from the heart. He never expected to meet an opponent like Chi Ce today. Many years later, in an interview with the media, the former international footballer, Shenhua star Bian-jun, talked about the first match against Chi Ce at a small stadium in Shanghai. At the time, I really felt that this kid was terrible, and he didn't play like a 15-year-old kid. I called Guidance Su immediately after the kick. I didn't expect that this child was Chongming back then, so I asked Guidance Su to pay more attention to him. Think about it later, I think this is a testimony, and I participated in the start of a legend. You played well, where did you practice? After the game, Bian-jun took the initiative to walk to Chi Ce. Seeing the stars coming over, the teammates who had surrounded Chi Ce gave way. Chongming, where is Su Lao? Chi Ce replied honestly. Jun Bian was a little surprised, nodded, and said, "What's your name?" Chi Ce. Jun Bian nodded approvingly, and patted Chi Ce on the shoulder. You can play professional football, so take it. He left after speaking. Chi Ce saw that he picked up his cell phone and made a call, but he didn't care who Bian-jun called. Instead, he was attracted by the cell phone in his hand. At that time, I didn't even have a mobile phone in my hand. I remember that the first mobile phone was after winning the championship in the city competition. My mother bought her own prize Sony Ericsson C800. From the perspective of modern people, it seems to be a completely eliminated product, small and exquisite. Fang Zheng, camera pixels are not bad. As for the result of this game, Chi Ce didn't particularly remember it. It is not so important anymore. The important thing is to play against professional players, which is a very valuable experience. This game should not be said to be a wild ball. Chi Ce scored a goal under Bian-jun's nose, which also inspired Bian-jun's fighting spirit. After that, he played very seriously, which made Chi Ce very uncomfortable. But from the perspective of bystanders, Chi Ce can be said to be slightly better. The teammate in charge of scoring said that the final result of this game should be 8-6. GCE's team won. This is also due to the fact that Bianjun has not go forward and attack, otherwise it's hard to say that they will explode. Slightly better in front of professional players. After this game, the eyes of the teammates following GCE have changed. It is different from GCE, who silently sorted out the equipment before the game. Many people came up to set up clothes, hoping to win GCE to his team. When a foreign aid. On the way home, GCE entered the virtual stadium. Sure enough, the task had been completed. There were 2 more black and white tokens on the table in the dressing room. One was used before, and 4 football coins remained. With the completion of the mission, some products were unlocked in the vending machine. GCE took a rough look at it. Most of them are sneakers. You don't need to consider these special products for a short time. For the other 2 tasks, the third may be more difficult in a short period of time. GCE focused on the second task, training. How is this training defined? GCE thought so, his eyes focused on the football lying on the locker room bench in the locker room. This is the football he bought from a vending machine before. It has been involved in reality, and there is also one in the virtual stadium. Is it? Stood up, GCE silently picked up the football and walked outside the locker room. The small pitch was still empty. GCE put down the football and tried to kick it. I don't know why. The default body equipment is very simple, the jerseys are all white, the jerseys are sleeveless, and the shoes are a pair of ordinary slippers, which are not suitable for playing football. GCE just wanted to give it a try. He thought of a possibility, training in this place, is it also a task? Yes, the significance of this stadium should be more than just looking at the data, this is a training base. Thinking of this, GCE went back to the vending machine, put in 2 football coins, bought a pair of Mizuno football shoes to wear on him, and returned to the stadium. It's much smoother like this. GCE lifted his foot gently, and the ball jumped up obediently. Before landing, GCE stood up on his left foot again, cycling back and forth. Among the professional players, GCE's technical ability is indeed not excellent. Most of the technical attributes in the attributes are single digits. Even the most basic smashing ball, among the small players in Chongming, GCE is not excellent. Although it can be controlled well in some cases, the error rate is indeed relatively high. This is also the key reason why Su Lao finally gave up in his previous life. The ball is the basic skill of the player's basic skills. Professional players cannot play like Ronaldinho, but they must not have a high turnover rate on the ordinary ball. Back to the age of 16, everything started from scratch. GCE decided to start from the basic skills. In the basic skills to review, the ball is the first step. To tell the truth, if the basic skills are in place, the goal like the one scored by Bianjun just now can be handled better. That goal will definitely not be scored against a professional goalkeeper. Find a way to bypass Bianjun and stop and play is the better choice in the official competition. But it was because he was not confident enough in his stopping skills when facing professional players, and in fact he was not good enough, so he chose to hit the goal directly. Bumping the ball training is to touch the ball, which is very helpful for stopping the ball, especially GCE is a weak point, but it is very important for forwards. Sir, what are you doing? During dinner in the evening, GCE was still concentrating on smashing the ball in the virtual stadium, and Zhang Huafang looked at his son a little weird. GCE came back to his senses, shook his head and said, "Oh, nothing. I have discussed with your dad, so let's take a step back, half a year." GCE put down his chopsticks, exited from the virtual stadium, looking at his mother. The advantage of the virtual stadium is that he is on call, and it is seamless to exit. You continue to practice ball in Chongming for half a year. If there is no improvement in half a year, go to school. Just half a year later is the new school year. The city competition is also in the second half of the year. Teacher Zhao also agreed. Is enough, Qi Ce thought secretly. With his own abilities, there must be a chance to get ahead there. There is almost no doubt that Bian Jun, a professional player of the Super League level, can be evenly divided, not to mention those young players. Compared with ability, what is more important is the overall environment. In this era, Chinese football is still shrouded in black fog. Unlike most dishes that are complained about 10 years later, it is the original sin. What is more muddy in this era is not football itself. It's the football environment. Is a stain that cannot be erased in this era. If the big environment is not good enough, the importance of the small environment is reflected. Qi Ce is located in almost the purest piece of pure land in the entire football circle at that time, the small island far away from the noise of the city. Therefore, he firmly believes that he will be able to get a chance here. But his ambition is more than that. Getting a chance at Chongming and Bao's base is just the foundation of the foundation. You know, he came back with a mysterious football system. In the setting of the game, Qi Ce set his potential attribute at 185. If all of them are fulfilled, the ability value can also reach this level. What does this level mean? For example, in the Football Manager 2021 game, there is exactly one player in the forward position with an ability value of 184. He is the head of Bayern Munich, the 2020 world footballer, and the Polish forward Robert Lewandowski. And the potential of this system cannot be queried. If it is set according to Qi policy, even if it is not 185, it should not be much different. In fact, as long as it is above 160, it is enough to play the main force in the European giants. Therefore, Qi Ce is of course not only satisfied with being able to play in the professional league in China, he is going to Europe. 16 years old, there is still time, still too late. Dad, Mom, if I kick out, I want to go abroad. Hey! Zhang Huifeng, who was talking and eating, was startled by Qi Ce's words, choked with a cough, and Qi Jian quickly patted his wife on the back. Qi Ce also patted his mother on the back and repeated, I want to go abroad and play in Europe. I can't speak English, so I still think about it. Zhang Huifeng didn't show his son any face, so he poked at the painful spot. This, I can learn. Qi Jian, who has always been taciturn, said again, Son, it's useless to say these things now. If you can really make a name for yourself, I will approve you to go to Europe, or rather, I hope you go to Europe. Qi Ce glanced at his father gratefully. The father and son in the previous life didn't communicate much, but there was always a tacit understanding. As he became more and more degenerate and useless www.mentalnovel.com, Dad didn't say much. Silently managing Qi Ce's things, such as that blind date, he always thought about it for himself. In this life, it seems that there is more and more tacit understanding. I don't know if Qi Ce, who is 30 years old, is back to 16, and mentally close to his father in his early 40s. Zhang Huifeng stopped saying anything for two reasons. First, from the bottom of her heart, she didn't really believe that Qi Ce could really go out. She was ready to send her son to the West Middle School to study. Second, she was short of her own parents. It can be presided over, but if you really encounter a major decision, the opinions of her husband Qi Jian will often influence the development of the situation. If Qi Jian decides to send Ceer out anyway, she will also support it. But Seer, you have to remember. Qi Jian's tone became serious, I know your current level. I often find time to go to the base to inquire about it. If it is awkward, I don't think you can succeed. A basin of cold water rushed toward his face, but Qi Ce was very calm, only he knew that the present himself was different from the past. But I want to give you a chance, in order to dream of the last chance. Qi Jian stretched out a finger and pointed to himself, your grandfather also gave Dad such an opportunity, but I was indeed incapable and gave up. Qi Ce heard this story. Chi Jian is an avid football fan. He played quite well. He even entered the Shanghai team's inspection list when he was studying. It was the professional system in the early 1980s, but Chi Jian eventually still failed to meet the corresponding ability standards and was eliminated. So no matter whether you succeed or not, I will give you a chance. Remember, only this time, I don't want to leave you regret. Chi Ce nodded silently and clenched his fists. Only succeed, not fail. In the next period of time until the new year, the frequency of Su Yubeo's appearance has obviously increased. This makes the young players happy and worried. The happy ones are the chance to play well in the professional league. The worry is Su Yubeo's. The bad name is well known at the base. There is a little mistake. The old man on the side of the training field is about to come. It is not enough to be scolded, and most of them have to be punished, running laps for 12. 10 laps are commonplace. Chi Ce also recalled the days when he was listening to roar at the base. He used to be scolded a lot, but now he has improved his level and has less scolding, but that doesn't mean he didn't. During this period of time, Su and Bao confirmed one thing. Chi Ce is indeed not the most suitable player for him, but he is indeed capable. The scary thing is that he is not even 16 years old this year, and his ability is enough to play in the domestic league. As for what level of competition he can play, it is impossible to judge the youth level training and competition. You have to take him to make the most correct judgment. New Year's Day to New Year's Day is only a short period of more than a month. During this period, Chi Ce completed the final exams in the base, and forgot about his studies that failed to meet expectations. This surprised the liberal arts teachers. Before New Year's Day, Chi Ce's results were not good, but he was among the best in this group of sports students. This is good, his skills are improved, and his results are relatively low. Is this the so-called one and the other? The liberal arts teacher told Wang Lianyuan and Su Zhenbao about this matter, and the two of them also felt very incredible. Is accidental, right? Several people didn't think about it in a deeper level. To be honest, if you grasp Chi Ce and ask the bottom of it on this point, Chi Ce will have a headache. There is no way to explain it. Amidst the sound of firecrackers, the second year 2006, which Zai said, has finally come to an end. I remember that 15 years later, fireworks and firecrackers were not allowed to be set off in Shanghai. Although it is much quieter, it seems that there is no sense of New Year. Memories of the New Year. The New Year holiday for the football base is here. This year 2007, which was like a turning point, finally unveiled her mystery. During the holidays, Chi Ce had a better understanding of this virtual stadium in his mind. In the virtual stadium, Chi Ce's physical strength is also limited. The previous 10 hours of basic skills training was also scattered, but this does not conflict with reality. In other words, Chi Ce is equivalent to having twice the physical fitness for training. Training in a virtual stadium can also improve attributes, but the speed is very slow. Just like a word, 3 minutes on stage, 10 years off stage, but after Chi Ce has this system, 10 years can become 5 years. In the past 5 years, he can do more things and improve himself further. Football coins have also unlocked more functions. There has always been only Chi Ce in the small football field. The training of one person is limited, so Chi Ce can use soccer coins to buy people. That is to say, you can be your opponent or teammate. The stronger the player, the more common players, such as the small players in the Tongbao base, you can buy a few football coins, those on the amateur field, one you can buy a team, and now the most expensive one is Junbian, who needs 3 football coins. The purchase function is to directly interact with Chi Ce players on the court or training ground. So far, these players have been unlocked, most of which are small players from Bao base. In addition, Chi Ce has a more comprehensive understanding of the mission system. Tasks are roughly divided into several types: ordinary tasks, training tasks, random tasks, long-term tasks, and urgent tasks. GCE has done common tasks and training tasks. The stranger ones are random tasks. These tasks are not only in the field of football, but also in other areas. GCE also proposed some task requirements. For example, GCE saw that on the first day, there was a task in the taskbar asking him to cook. Of course, these are not mandatory, but only a few football coins are used too quickly. If you buy some sparring partners, you have no money for the equipment, and you have to make money for these tasks. With people, the virtual stadium is also alive. It is no longer the silent little football stadium before. No matter how GCE wants to train, these virtual people will cooperate with him, all year round. After the festival, it is a very important time for the young players in the football base. Since Su Zhenbao founded the Shanghai East Asia Football Club at the end of 2005, Zhenbao Base has become the reserve team of East Asia. Last year, in the Chinese League B, all the participating players in Shanghai East Asia came from the base. In other words, as long as they perform at the base well, it is logical to follow to play professional leagues. There are still 3 months to start, but the selection of the base is in full swing. From last year's performance, Sun Kai under coach Wang Lianyuan and 2 young players under coach Lu Qingchuan Wang Yunlong and Bai Jiajin have been favored by Su Yubao. This year basically booked the East Asian team's first team places. But before that, another name also entered Su Zhenbao's field of vision. Is GCE. Regarding this name that can be described as a sudden emergence, all but Wang Lianyuan's young people who have understood GCE's power at the same base, they all have a question: who is GCE? With the end of a conference, Su Zhenbao announced a new batch of reserve team members selected for the East Asian team training list: GCE, Bai Jiajin, Wang Yunlong, Sun Kai. The players who have been selected to the first team last season are eligible to choose the jersey number. Later, the newcomers can only arrange an order and other arrangements. According to the order, GCE is 23rd, and it is logical to get the number 23 jersey. In other words, after the new year, GCE will be training with the professional team. Although his goal is to go to Europe, he still has to eat one bite at a time. He is not an older young man who is about to rise. He is still under 16 years old. There is enough time to fight for these. After entering the first team, there is another change, that is, there is a salary. 800 yuan per month. GCE knew that after the Chinese Super League's golden dollar storm, many domestic players' salaries rose high. Millions and tens of millions of annual salaries were too normal for players at the international level. So seeing this poor 800 yuan, I couldn't help but feel a panic. Whispered. The training ground of the first team is next to the reserve team. It feels like there is no difference. It is said that it is the youth team and the first team. In fact, the players of the 2 teams are basically the same age. They are teenagers in the 8,991 age group. Among these people, there are many names that will be familiar to Chinese fans in the future. Wu Lei, Yan Junling, Zhang Linpeng, Wang Shenchao, Zhang Zhupeng, Cai Huiking are all regulars of the national team in a few years, and there are many Chinese Super League players: Cao Yunding, Bai Jiajin, Lu Wenjun, Gu Zhou etl. Only at this time, they are still a group of teenagers who have just played in the professional league. Last season, Shanghai East Asia ranked 7th in the Southern Division of the 2nd Division. This is the first time for the team to participate in a professional league. This result is not bad, but Su not satisfied with Bao. This season, we are going to make it. This was the request made by Su Gangbao at the mobilization meeting. As a member of the former football base with Bao, GCE certainly knows that they succeeded in winning the Chinese League B and being promoted to the first division this season. Even if he is not there, this goal can be accomplished as scheduled. Until the beginning of the league, Chi Ce, who entered the first team, still surprised Su Yubao. In fact, Chi Ce did not perform well in training. Because he does not have particularly good skills, he insists on shooting. At this age, Chi Ce shoots well, but other than that, his ball ability is relatively average. What surprised Su and Bao was Chi Ce's performance in the training match. He thought it was accidental in the first game, but after months of observation, Su and Bao realized that Chi Ce played like this. Speed and running are his biggest advantages. The player awareness and skills of the first team are a level higher than that of the base. Chi Ce plays a lot smoother, but there is still a feeling of not being at the same rhythm, which means that compared to the first team, Chi the policy is still to be higher. Having been in Chinese football for so many years, Su Zhenbao has never seen a small player at this age. He is fast, has a very good sense of running position, and plays very cleverly, but with average skills. To put it bluntly, there is the speed of African players and the awareness of European players. www.mtlnovel.com The skills of Chinese players. If you want this kid to kick out, the best way is to send it to Europe. The domestic training methods, including Su and Bao, emphasize more on tactics, siege, pass and turn, and emphasize on the whole, rather than personal skills. Chi Ce has a very high level of overall consciousness, and it is in China. At this level, such a player is a luxury. Hone personal skills, even in the Super League, it is difficult for a team to have such an atmosphere, so if you really want to train this player, the best way is to go to Europe. The youth training has been in for a long time. In addition to looking at the player's potential and abilities, Su Yubao will see some deeper things. There are not many potential new stars worth paying attention to in China, and among the few new stars, Su Zhenbao has a general idea of them. From the personality and ability of the team to the environment of the team, the environment of the league, the environment of the country, and whether it is suitable for player development, most players who are born and raised in China do not have this problem, as long as they consider their future development direction. Many have been sent out, but it is better to stay in Chongming at this stage. Until they saw Chi Ce, Su and Bao had an idea of wanting to send it out as soon as possible, but felt it was a pity. It's a pity that it's nothing else, it's money. How much can a player like this make? Su Gangbao thought about this problem in his mind. His original intention was naturally to train more young players, but all of them cost money. The football base invested 30 million yuan, and the 20 million yuan was borrowed from the bank, and the interest was all. It's several million, and it hasn't been paid off yet. This question has caused Su Jingbao a headache for a long time, but time is not waiting. Finally, the Chinese League 2 arrived as scheduled. During the May Day Golden Week in 2007, the first round of the league began. The half-year appointment, Chi Ce completed ahead of schedule. When Qi Jian and Zhang Huafang came to the football base to sign the contract for Chi Ce, Zhang Huafang also vowed to say that something must have been wrong. It was not until Su Yubao appeared to talk to the Qi family and his wife that Zhang Huafang knew that this was true. Qi Jian was also surprised, but he acted much more calmly. He had a cold expression when signing the contract at the football base. It was not until he returned home that Zhang Huafang found out that her husband was already very happy, waving vigorously in an unmanned room. Fist, as he celebrated after scoring a goal on the field when he was young. Then, the invitation from teacher Zhao from West Middle School can already turn around. Ms. Zhao is very sorry to hear this news, but congratulations to Zhang Huafang anyway. The couple greeted a group of relatives and friends and held a small banquet at home to celebrate their son's entry into the first team, but Chi Ce could not participate. The May Day Golden Week was the most stressful time to prepare for the league. The first game coincided with the home court. On May 5, Shanghai East Asia hosted the home court and attracted the first opponent of the second season of the professional league, the Qingdao Liming team from Qingdao, Shandong. Chi Ce has undoubtedly gotten the start. In the past few months of training, Qi Ce has fully proved his ability, and the doubts about the previous period have slowly dissipated. Qi Ce's name has begun to circulate among a small number of fans. Another little genius has emerged from the base of the treasure. Today's opponent in the game is from Qingdao, Shandong. Shandong is the province with the highest average height in the country. The players of Qingdao Liming are also significantly taller than the East Asian players. With the sound of a whistle, the first official game of Qi Ce's career began. With the advantage of home court, the East Asian team quickly launched a wave of offensive. Qingdao team played in the Chinese League 2 for 2 years, both at the downstream level and strength. Not strong, East Asia quickly seized the initiative. Shandong's young people are tall and big, with a tough style. Although the technology is really rough, but the fighting spirit is high. After all, it is the first league game, which is very important. The front court of the East Asian team, including Qi Ce, is a group of small quick spirits. The skills of the players are very good in the second team. After adapting to the rhythm of Qingdao, they have repeatedly created threatening attacks. In such a low-level game, Qi Ce did not let the team's goal come too late. In 23 minutes, Qi Ce's striker partner Zhu Zhengrong made a breakthrough in the middle, directly penetrating Qingdao's 2 defensive midfielders and passing the ball. Assigned to Qi Ce. The opponent's defender is very slow. The frequency was not fast. Qi Ce simply stopped the ball to get rid of it and dunked a defensive player. He could give Zhu Zhengrong, who had already been inserted next to him, but Qi Ce still chose to do it himself. Facing another Qingdao player who came over from the defense, Qi Ce lightly dialed the ball and swung the angle away. Although the Qingdao defender was brave, it was indeed overpowering and completely lost his center of gravity. 2 simple clicks past the 2 directly, and facing the goal couldn't be easier. With a powerful shot, Qi Ce easily scored the first goal in the personal league. Actually, there are not many flaws in this ball. Qi Ce's first stop was a bit bad, and then it was a little bit procrastinated when he swung the angle away. Qi Ce himself felt that if it weren't for the opposing defender to overdo it and lose the center of gravity, it would be difficult for a defensive player to stand in front of him. Anyway, just score a goal and the next game will be easier. Towards the end of the first half, after Qi Ce grabbed the ball to attract the defense of 2 players, he forced a risky thong to Zhu Zhengrong, who was quickly plugged in. Zhu Zhengrong shook off the attacking goalkeeper and kicked the shot. The empty goal expanded the score to 2-0. Qi Ce gave the ball back to Zhu Zhengrong. According to the training game, he would hit the wall directly and return it to Zhu Zhengrong. He could easily create a single-handed chance, but in the game, he wanted to score more. This is the true color of a shooter. The second half of the game went more smoothly. In 45 minutes, the East Asian team scored 4 goals with full firepower. Qi Ce didn't score a goal, but got another assist. In 60 minutes, he was replaced by a base. It's excellent, only 15 years old 292 days. Inadvertently, the name Qi Ce has been in Chinese football history forever. Born on July 17, 1991, Qi Ce scored the first goal in the first round of the Chinese Football League on May 5, 2007. Qi Ce also became the Chinese Professional League with this goal. The youngest scorer. The record was broken by Qi Ce's teammate Cao Yunding in today's game. It was last year, that is, on July 22, 2006. At the age of 16 and 242 days, Cao Yunding defeated Su Zhao Tupa 5-2 at home in the East Asian League of China League 2. She scored a goal in the game. And Qi Ce advanced the record 10 months and 10 days. The first official game broke an insurmountable new record. This is the first starting point for the king of records in the future. In the virtual stadium, the first memorable mission was completed, and Qi Ce finally got a truly valuable reward, an attribute distribution point that can be added to any attribute. Great Harvest. Originally thought that he had completed a task, but there were additional gains, which surprised Chi Ce. During this period of time, I completed a lot of training and messy tasks. Excluding the purchase of people, buying shoes and other equipment, plus the 30 rewards this time, there are now 82 football coins. The purchasing power is of little significance, so I will save it for the time being. Chi Ce added a little task bonus attribute point to running without the ball, and this attribute reached 15. The higher the ability value, the more expensive. That is to say, this freely assignable attribute point is the most cost-effective to add to the originally high attribute. Chi Ce is at double speed 15 and running without the ball 14. Among these three attributes, I chose to run without the ball. The speed is temporarily sufficient, and running without the ball is now his biggest advantage. There is also a language learning skill book, which is also a treasure that cannot be bought with money. One of the most sad hurdles for Chinese players studying abroad is language. In this system, you can learn directly. If there is a beginner level, there must be an intermediate level and an advanced level. You don't need to spend time learning languages, you can put more energy on the court. As for what language to learn, Chi Ce hasn't decided yet. After all, he's still not sure where to go. What Chi Ce didn't know was that during this time, Su and Bao had already started to move. He hoped to find a balance between the interests of the players and the interests of the team. Prior to this, Su Zhenbao had always believed that Wu Lei, regarded as the treasure of the base, was the most proud disciple he encountered, but Chi Ce was even worse. He even reached a height where he could not stimulate his full potential at his own level. "Old Zhou, how have you been in Europe these 2 years?" On the other end of the phone, it was Su Gangbao's old friend Zhou Feng, who was also an avid football fan. He played football in China for a while at the beginning of the new century. Later, for various reasons, he went to Europe after the team was disbanded in 2004. Do business while expanding another football business. Is nothing else, just because he likes football. www.mtlnovel.com. Zhou Feng has already managed several Chinese players going to Europe to play football. "It's okay, Mr. Su, what's the matter? I have a player. I want to send him to Europe." "Hey? Mr. Su, you have come out from the west side of the sun. You can't be a treasure if you have a good seed in the football base. Don't talk too much." Su and Bao cursed with a smile. "I do have a good seed, when will I come over?" "Okay, I can't listen to your old Su's words. I'm really not joking, I'm really surprised." Zhou Feng thought for a while and said in a serious tone. "Educating people is like planting trees. Only with the right soil can you grow towering trees." Su and Bao paused. "The martial arts talent is also very high. I also said that he is China's Maradona, and that is also China. The good seedling I was talking about is not the same." Zhou Feng listened quietly. Su Yubao almost didn't praise people in front of the players. It would be good if he didn't scold him, but he wouldn't be stingy with comments in private. "That's a really good seed, Lao Zhou, I'm afraid it will delay him." "I see, when the next game will be, I will come right away." Hanging up, Zhou Feng rubbed his temples, pondering what Su and Bao had just said. Before Su and Bao's plan to build Manchester United in China took shape, Mr. Su had not received as much praise as more than 10 years later, but he is also regarded as the leading celebrity in China. Such a person actually said, "I'm afraid of delaying him." Then, what is this concept? For this reason, Zhou Feng decided to set off immediately to return to China to see the genius in Su Zhenbao's mouth. In the second round of the China League 2, Shanghai East Asia will head north to Tianjin and challenge Tianjin Dongli away. Zhou Feng and Su Yubao have made an appointment to meet directly in Tianjin. All this happened without Chi Ce's knowledge. On May 11, Tianjin Binhai International Airport. Zhou Feng came out of the airport and called. After looking at the phone display, Zhou Feng pressed the answer button. It's me. Uncle Zhou, it's me, Lu Yuhao. I heard that you have returned to China? What happened to what you said last time? It's almost June here too. Xiao Lu, I also said last time, I really can't guarantee that you go to Europe. The quota is limited, and the People's Club also has certain requirements. Uncle Zhou, just be accommodating, we can also make sense. Zhou Feng shook his head and sighed. Xiao Lu, don't do that. Uncle Zhou really doesn't play football to make money. I don't have a club anymore. No need. The other party was silent for a while, and then asked, Uncle Zhou, the quota, is really the last one? Is there anyone else? I can't guarantee that I will get back to you in June. Well, I'll wait for the news from Uncle Zhou. A busy tone came. Zhou Feng looked at his cell phone and was thankful that he did not boast about answering the party in Haikao. After Su and Bayana made a call to express his intentions, Zhou Feng thought so. In addition to his own medicine import and export business in Europe, he also opened a company as a player agent. The main business was to send Chinese players to Europe. During this time, he didn't have many players. Profit is more in a kind of love, using love to generate electricity. Second, there are only a handful of Chinese players who can gain a foothold in Europe. Unless they are partners with a Chinese background, it will be too difficult. He also attaches great importance to the players Su Yubao mentioned to him. The information has been sent to his mailbox. It is called Chi Ce. He is a striker. Although he has not seen this player yet, with a word from Yubao, he actually has almost agreed in his heart. Chi Ce occupies this place. As for the young man named Lu Yuhao, 19 years old, he played for the Shanghai 7 Doing Club, which was the former Shanghai Zhongbang. This season, Lu Yuhao is a regular substitute player in the Chinese league. He also hopes to go abroad to Europe, because his girlfriend is about to go abroad to study. He himself also hopes to go out and come back again after plating gold. Maybe he can be seen by the Super League team. But to be honest, Lu Yuhao's ability is only a substitute in the Chinese league. Even if he goes abroad, he can only stay in the youth team for a year or two before returning to China, which is of little significance. If Zhou Feng wants to make money, he can of course send Lu Yuhao out, but he is more out of hobby, and his property has also achieved freedom. Now he does not need to compromise for money. So he decided to take a look at Chi Ce before making a decision. This is the first time for Chi Ce to follow the team to an away game. Chi Ce originally thought that the team would take a flight, but he did not expect to take a train. The train would take more than 9 hours. In 2007, the Beijing-Shanghai high-speed railway has just been approved and construction has not yet started. From Shanghai to Tianjin, only high-speed trains can be used. The budget for a train ticket is enough to go back and forth. Grassroots football is so difficult to do. In the second division, there is no attention to the game, only to spend money, such as Su Yubao and the very few who can succeed in the end. Most of them have spent money, and you can't even hear the response. Kind. The salary of the team is part of the maintenance of the stadium, training ground, dormitory, the players' food, and travel expenses. These are all long-term large expenses. China has a large land area. Playing an away game in Europe means spanning more than half of the continent, and it is expensive. The travel expenses are sometimes the straw that overwhelms the team. Unless Su Enbao's consciousness of sharpening his sword for 10 years is done well, there will be almost no return in the second division. This is also an important reason why domestic low-level league teams always split and reconcile, and disband after 2 years of playing. In today's game, the opponent's strength is not strong on paper, but after sitting on the train for such a long time, the state is somewhat affected. Before the start of the game, Chi Ce is still on the starting list, the effect of the new star birth skill is activated, and Chi Ce can add 5 attributes at will. This opponent took 7th place in the North District last year. They are all members of the Tianjin Sports Bureau. They are very experienced. They are older and taller. There is nothing terrifying. Thinking back to Su Yubeo's words, Qi Ce decided to put the 5-point ability value on explosive power and flexibility. The explosive power was increased by a little, and the flexibility was increased by 4 points. The explosive power temporarily became 16, and the flexibility was 14. Sure enough, the opponent's height is more scary than the opponents in the league. The 4 defenders and the 2 central defenders are all 1.9 meters, the full-backs are both 1.8 meters, and the back midfielder looks almost 1.9 meters tall. In front of the Chongming group of children, they are nothing but a witch, and they can barely match. Their height is only the team's 2 goalkeepers Gu Zhou and Yan Junling. As imagined, although they are tall enough, they are extremely slow, not only the absolute speed, but also the sensitivity and flexibility of the reaction. The defender who has turned for half a century is indeed quite embarrassed in front of the flexible Qi Ce. Qi Ce didn't quite adapt to the opponent's movements in the opening stage, but as the game progressed, Qi Ce gradually mastered the rhythm. In this match, Qi Ce's striker partner was replaced by Liu Wenjun, who was also the only tall player in the attacker on the front court. Liu Wenjun took a long pass from the backcourt and headed the ball directly, and Qi had already run out of half of the gap. Ce finally got a chance. The Tianjin players are very fierce. Although the turning speed has been slowed by half a beat, seeing Qi Ce throw away his position to catch up with the ball, the tall defender made a shovel from the diagonally behind, almost throwing himself out. Don't think he has lost his position, but with tall legs and long legs, he is not able to make a fierce tackle. Change to normal, Qi Ce will definitely be kicked to the ground if he has no time to react. And this kind of rough tackle is very likely to cause serious injuries. But the growth of his flexible attributes made him react almost at the same time, and with a single leap, he flexibly avoided this fierce tackle. Su stood up with Proton and stared at Qi Ce. The latter dodged the tackle and faced the goalkeeper single-handedly, easily pushing to break the deadlock. Is this a kick? Ah! This is a useless man. Off the court, Su Zhenbao was not happy with the goal, and was rather dissatisfied on the sidelines. Roaring at the referee. On the other side, Toray coach and Tianjin football star Shen Furu had a pale face. He looked at his former national teammate Su Yubao and looked at the court, but he didn't say anything in the end. In the stands of the Dongli Sports Center Stadium, some fans were scattered. Most of them were relatives and friends of the Tianjin team. There were also some media and staff, including Zhou Feng. The Toray team lost the ball, and the fans in the stands expressed regret, but he brightened his eyes and nodded in satisfaction. The shot was very calm and the angle of the push was very tricky. Not to mention this kind of middle-level goalkeeper, there are not many in Europe. It can be saved. But of course, it should be a single goal, and I don't blame the goalkeeper. The front evasive tackle movement is also very sensitive, and the movement stretches very smoothly, which is not the same as the ordinary yellow race Asian players. Generally speaking, the movements of Asian players are relatively tight and uncoordinated, but Qi Ce is not. To the same. Before the game, Su and Bao took the time to meet with Zhou Feng. When he mentioned Qi Ce, Su said that Qi Ce has the looks and style of Asian players, the tactical awareness of European players, the physical fitness of African players, and the skills that are not as good as those of South America. The player is so delicate, but relatively solid, the technique can be practiced slowly, he is very talented. And they are still under 15 years old. Chinese people say that the age is generally 16 years old, but in football, the actual age is still determined. In the general environment where the age of Chinese football is changing, the base is not the same. For the national games and the London Olympic qualifiers, Su Gangbao is to train players in the 8,991 age group, and the enrollment goal is also this. Unless he changed www.mtlnovel.com before coming to the base, he and Bayo base must be their actual age. As a domestic footballer who is familiar with Europe, Zhou Feng knows that such players in China are not afraid of not being able to play, but they will be restrained by the upper limit. The potential of 100 points has been staying in the country and not going to Europe. Potential. The 1-goal lead was maintained until the end of the first half. GCE still had several shots, but the opponent made a lot of moves, destroyed a lot of the ball, and had no chance to score. At the beginning of the second half, the Toray team's style did not change. GCE was fortunate that he added flexibility before the game, which made the opposing players have no choice but to foul. Soon, the East Asian team scored the second goal. After GCE cut in from the left, he scored with his right foot. This ball started from the left side of the penalty area and cut the ball all the way to the penalty spot. It's not that GCE really wanted to be so alone, but the Toray team's defensive actions were too great, and GCE had to dodge several positions to get the ball. It was such a fleeting moment, GCE seized the opportunity to score the second goal. As soon as the goal was scored, Su and Bayo felt relieved, and told Zhu Zhengrong beside him to protect himself from injury, and then replaced GCE. In the following game, winger Wang Yunlong stole the opponent and scored to kill the game. At the last moment, the Toray team pressed on the whole line. With the advantage of height, a central defender of the Toray team scored a header and the score was finally fixed at 3-1. 2 wins in 2 games, the team's top scorer GCE scored 3 goals in 2 games. Although the game was not very pleasant, but after the game, Su Tongbayo still showed a rare smile. The team's schedule is still relatively rushed. After the game, they will return to Shanghai without stopping. They only had time to take a shower in the hotel and boarded the train back to Shanghai. It seems that this night is going to sleep on the train. Xiao Qi, come here, and Director Su has something to tell you. GCE followed his reputation. It was the team's executive coach Zhang Binjiao. Although he is the head coach in name, everyone knows that the real boss is Su Yubao. GCE, lying on the bed, withdrew from the virtual stadium. Although he was tired in reality, he was still training the liver in the virtual stadium, which did not affect his physical fitness in reality. He did 2 things with 1 stone. After returning from the journey, GCE really never encountered the opportunity to chat with Su and Bayo alone. Thinking of the old man on the training ground who wanted to eat people, GCE panicked for no reason, just like being called by the head teacher in elementary school. That kind of feeling at the time. Su, Director Su, are you looking for me? Oh, Xiao Qi. Su and Bao's voice was a little hoarse, he used this voice almost every time he played and after training. After taking a sip of tea, Su Zhenbao pulled out a black gadget from his bag and handed it to GCE. GCE took it in confusion and found that it turned out to be a PSP. Looking at GCE's puzzled look, Su and Bayo smiled and said, "Zushi, forget it. Your own stuff." After being reminded like this, GCE suddenly remembered that when he was in the football base, he secretly saved a little money for the new year and bought a magic machine PSP at that time. You can watch videos, read novels, play games, and listen to music. Mobile phones are not so versatile. In a base where there is no entertainment, there is a PSP that is the envy of everyone. But when he raided the room again, GCE hid in the bed in the middle of the night playing a game and was caught by Su Hyongbao, who was confiscated at the time. Was scolded first the next day, and then he was fined to run a circle. The young GCE ran straight and shed tears at the time. From the current time, it should be something that happened last year. The machine is still very new. It can be seen that Su Zhenbao didn't just leave it in the corner, but kept it carefully. There was a fresh keeping bag outside. "Director Su, this. I'll give it back to you." Holding the PSP, GCE still didn't know what medicine was sold in the old man's gourd. "Xiao Qi, how many years have you been to me? 3 years, 4 years. Chi Ce hesitated, time is too long, his memory is a little fuzzy, only remember that he was not the first group to come to Chongming Base, about 0304, he came here after being introduced by someone. If someday you won't play football with me, where do you want to play? Chi Ce was taken aback, he faintly guessed what Su Yubeo meant, and said, I want to go abroad and go to Europe. Why? Europe has the best football in the world. Only when you go to Europe can you have a chance to become the best player in the world. Chi Ce said without hesitation. Su nodded with Bao, and then asked, do you have any plans? Not yet, I want to play well first. If there is a chance now, would you like to go? Chi Ce met Su Yubeo's eyes for the first time. To tell the truth, he was somewhat nervous, but at this time, Chi Ce suddenly stopped nervous. Director Su, I want to go. The voice is not loud, but it is unusually firm. The carriage quieted down, and only the friction sound of the track and the train continued to echo in the carriage. Through thick reading glasses, Su Yubeo looked at the young man in front of him, and the young man looked at him steadfastly. In my impression, this young man who didn't talk much did not show such a side. Maybe this is the power of dreams into reality. The young boy's eyes seemed to be shining. After a long silence, Su talked to Bao, I have a friend, he can help you. Chi Ce stared at Su Jingbao a little strangely, Director Su, then you. As long as you care about your good football, you can always play wherever you are. You are only 15 or 6 years old. Playing football is now your most important thing. Know what to do. Chi Ce nodded and said yes. You are the first player I have the idea to send abroad. Su Jingbao stood up and patted Chi Ce's shoulder, football must follow the law of football development. Europe is the best. Chi Ce, who was back in bed, was thinking about this all the time. He couldn't sleep. Of course he thought about going abroad to play football, but he didn't expect the opportunity to come so quickly. Only after playing 2 professional games, the opportunity to go abroad came. Excitement, tension, and complex moods are intertwined. Chi Ce, who can't sleep, simply continues to practice in the virtual stadium. Recently, he is stepping up his technical skills. Was training excited, the system jumped out and released a new task. Continue to look down, there is an introduction to the skills below. Unlike the previous new star, the precision shooting is a standing skill once learned. It can be activated automatically. The cooling time is 1 game. After the precision shooting is turned on, the shooting accuracy will be greatly increased, and the ball will follow an ideal route to the goal. But it is not necessarily a goal. If the goalkeeper is brave enough, there is still the possibility of saving. It is very suitable for long shots or free kicks. The success rate in the penalty area should be higher. Of course, I have to get this opportunity first. A few days later, Su and Bao brought a middle-aged man who looked 40 to 50 years old to meet with Chi Ce. The other party was called Zhou Feng. Since Chi Ce was still a minor, he still had to get parental consent to make the trip. Zhou Feng still plans to come and see his customers first. I am now doing business in Central Europe and Western Europe, and I am familiar with Germany, France, the Netherlands, and Belgium. In fact, several players I represent are also in these countries. Chi Ce is a little disappointed. In fact, he prefers to play in the Premier League. The Premier League has always been the game he watched most often during the period before crossing. My colleague in Europe, Xiao Dong, is Dong Fengzhuo's agent Gao Qi. To be honest, he is much better than me. He can contact many strong teams. He is very well connected in the UK. Manchester United, Tottenham. This kind of team can also be pushed past, very powerful, but I think it is not suitable for young players like you. What do you think? Which team do you want to go to? Chi Ce thought about it. Now I don't want to go to a strong team. It is more important to find a place where I can play. Yes, I can't ask for anything. With the resources I have, I would recommend Germany or the Netherlands on your terms. Director Su also said that your tactical awareness is very good. This is suitable for the German team. The ball ability is very strong, which is suitable for the Dutch team. Chi Ce pondered that the Bundesliga is one of the top 5 leagues in Europe, and it must receive more attention than the Eredivisie. He said, Germany is very good, I think it should be very suitable for me. Oh, Germany is really good, and it is very suitable for the development of Asian players. Zhou Feng nodded, in fact, I am already taking the lead in this matter. There are still a lot of procedures to be followed. Let's arrange a time. I and your parents all meet up, arrange this matter, and it will work. Seeing Zhou Feng talking about himself, Chi Ce was a little overwhelmed. At this time, Su Yubao pushed him aside, get up and shake your hand. I don't know how polite is this? Now this teacher Zhou is your agent is here. Going to Europe is a big event, at least for an individual and a family. Qi Jian and Zhang Huafeng stared at the slightly bald man in front of them, and asked in disbelief, you said our family CEER is going to Europe. Qi Jian seemed calmer, although he didn't expect the incident to come so soon. Xiao Qi level will definitely be better in Europe. This is the common view of Lao Su and I. Then, what are we going to do? Just leave it to me www.mtlnovel.com. But Xiaoqi is not an adult now. If I want to be his agent, I must also support 2 people. This. Zhang Huafeng looked at her husband with a little bewilderment. She didn't expect her son to soar into the sky so quickly and get the opportunity to go to Europe. Qi Jian's expression is also very complicated, but he has a general direction in his heart. He said that he will definitely support his son to go to Europe. The conversation between the 3 of them lasted for more than an hour, roughly clarifying Chi Ce's journey to Europe. In this era, playing football is actually a very unwise investment. The conditions of Chi Ce's family can only be said to be ordinary, but in the end, the 2 sides reached an agreement. Just send him out to study, first prepare a 100,000. Qi Jian's expression slightly twitched. He was planning to buy a car after the Chinese New Year, but the idea had already been given up. My own son is also a man. The agreement between men must be fulfilled. As long as they can go out, even if they can't get out, even if they come back and find a team in the Super League, they can improve the life of the family. Husband, do you really want to send CEER out? Zhang Huafeng's tone was full of dissatisfaction. He usually hates iron and steel. He feels that his son is too bored and he is very stubborn about playing football, but he is his own son after all. Send it out, we will regret it for a year or 2, but if we don't send it out, CEER will regret it for a lifetime. Qi Jian shook his head and patted his wife on the shoulder. In the future, CEER will go to high school and college, and the money will still be spent. It may be less, but it doesn't matter, I take this risk. My brother has another project over there. I couldn't pick it up after thinking about it. Now I plan to work hard for you at home for a while. Zhang Huafeng looked at her husband, gritted his teeth and said, okay, I'll just listen to you.